So we are very fortunate to have Dr. Kathy Koch with us today, talking to us about the basic needs of children. So, Dr. Kathy, thank you for joining us.
I'm honored to be here. I'm so excited for the ministry that you have with these important people.
Thank you. So, for those who are not familiar with your basic platform and what you teach, would you give us those 5 core needs for kids to thrive and survive?
Yeah, I would love to do that. So everything that we do at the ministry is based on this model of core needs. I've written many books and speak on many things, but we always come back to what's the essence, right, of life and parenting. And so we believe that all of us, adults and children, have 5 core needs in this order: security, who can I trust? Not what can I trust, but who can I trust? So the more opportunity children have to know trustworthy people that they learn are on their side, of course, the better. And then identity, who am I? Basic question. And most kids don't come up to us and, mommy, who am I? But it's a core need. Identity creates behavior. Identity causes behavior. So if we don't know who we are, we don't know how to behave. If we only know a negative view of ourselves, we only behave in light of that negative view. And identity is based in security. Again, if I don't have people who I trust telling me who I am, then I'm a wishy-washy and I blow where the wind sends me, and my identity shifts when we don't want it to shift. And then the third one is belonging. Who wants me? Another need, right? And this is so significant, Kathy, to your work. And it's based again on the first two. So security, who can I trust? Identity, who am I? Facilitates belonging, who wants me? If I have no security and I don't know who I am, I don't know how to enter into relationships. Now, a lot of our young people today believe the lie that they should have 52 million best friends. That's not realistic. I'm not sure 5 best friends is really realistic to try to meet the needs and take care of that many people. But certainly our family is supposed to be where belonging is settled. And that's why, trauma is such a challenging issue. And we'll talk about that. And then we get to purpose. Why am I alive? Why am I alive? Let me back up a second and say this. Belonging is who wants me. And like I said, it's rooted in identity and security. So if somebody's belonging is warped, belonging is off, I can teach friendship skills. They're actually, one of the chapters in the book 5 to Thrive has all the friendship skills. You can teach kids how to have conversations. You can teach kids how to identify who is for them and who is against them. You can teach kids how to break off relationships in healthy ways rather than in damaging ways. But you know what? If their identity is still, I am a jerk, their belonging is still going to be off. So that's why this pyramid is valuable. Does that make sense? I hope. So you can teach the skills at one level of the core needs model. And then you also want to go back down to see is that the reason that I'm struggling or my kids are struggling. So security, identity, belonging leads to purpose. Why am I alive? Another question is that most of us don't literally ask, but it's the essence, right? It's what gives you hope. And you have to have hope to have purpose. Purpose is what wakes you up after a bad day. Purpose is what causes you to engage in your education. Purpose, why am I alive? Believing that God made you intentionally is such a significant part of that. So purpose, again, rooted in belonging because we're created to serve. We're created to love. We're created to mentor and to breathe life into people. So if I don't have belonging, then my purpose isn't essential. And then we end the core needs model with competence. What do I do well? And I'm here to say that competence, what do I do well? That's what a lot of parents want for their children, that they would do well academically, artistically, athletically, that they would do well with their character. And all of that is totally legit. Of course, I want you to have those goals for your children, that they would be well and do well. It's rooted in the first 4. Children who don't have purpose don't need to do anything well. Children who don't have belonging have no one to serve, therefore they don't need to do anything well. Children whose identity is only rooted in the negatives, is broken, is incomplete, and perfectionistic is maybe their identity. Competence is almost impossible. And security in people can lead to competence because now I know who to turn to in a time of need. So those are the 5 core needs in that order, met by God, and we can support that as well. Man, I hope that makes sense.
That makes wonderful sense. So in light of those core needs, as we as parents are struggling to fulfill all of those, to encourage our children to grow and become the people that God has in mind for them, what happens to the children when a parent moves out?
Yeah, such a good question, of course, in light of this. Initially, I think in some families, Kathy, initially there can be relief. If there's been a lot of yelling and a lot of tension among the parents, the husband and wife, then security for the children is really hard. They might have trouble going to bed. They might be scared to come home from school, wondering what they're going to find, what kind of attitudes are going to be present. And so initially, there could be relief. Not all the time, but initially, and then that'll shift, I think, right? Because as they realize that they don't get to see, the dad or the mom who they loved as often, or maybe not at all, depending upon the situation. And so it will affect all five. To be very honest with you, as I've, ministered to families and do my speaking and writing, I've seen some families where that pyramid just, the whole thing just crumbles. The kids, well, I have no one I can trust. This is why the parent who is present with the children must be fully present and must tell the truth and must be someone who is trustworthy. If you say to your children, you can come to me with anything, you better mean that. And if you don't mean that, don't say that. Because if they can't have trust in the parent who they're living with in this moment, of course, they will struggle even more. Their identity, my parents are divorced. I'm from a divorced family. Does that have to be their identity? There's still so many things about them. They still have two parents. They still have a family. They still have their, soccer. They still have their piano. They still have the fact that they love to write. So I think it's essential too that in that moment that we make sure the kids know who they are beyond that trauma. Belonging, I think grandparents, cousins, the routines are belonging. I don't know about you, Kathy, but I think I can think back to my childhood and the routines and the memories that I have of every other Sunday lunch with grandma and grandpa. And so if you are a family that has rooted in memories and extended family, and that may not be the case, but if it is the case, I would encourage you, of course, to make as many attempts as possible to keep those relationships alive, even if it's over, a FaceTime kind of a conversation with your kids. Purpose. Your purpose is not to bring your parents back together, right? I mean, I bet you could tell us stories. I bet everyone in the audience could tell us stories of children who feel responsible and then children who want to solve all the problems. And later we can talk a little bit about problem solving. It's actually quite interesting. But what we don't want is for our children to believe that it is their job to make mommy happy, that their purpose is to love dad so well that, he'll stop his drinking or whatever might be going on there. Mm-hmm. And that's why we have to give kids other purposes, whether that be to learn the piano well enough to be in the recital, to choose to go out for dance, to take the Red Cross first aid class so you can be a babysitter in the neighborhood, giving them other things that they can focus on so that they understand. And then competence, what do I do well? Again, to be positive and optimistic in these kids with trauma is absolutely essential so that they define themselves beyond the trauma experience.
Yes. So what are some good questions that we could ask our children? Of course, it's going to depend on the age.
Yeah.
I think primarily of the older teens or even the younger teens, preteens, they're in a ball of confusion. So what are some good questions? Not that we want to interrogate our children, but we want them to be able to talk, right?
Yeah, I love that. Because kids will tell me, they interrogate me all the time. It's as if the bright white light is in my face, But it's your responsibility to know what's going on. And I love you for digging in, you guys. For you parents who you're not going to let them push you away and you're going to stay present. Like, I'm so proud of you because I can only imagine. Wow, I can only imagine the pain when you want to know your own kids and you want to help them solve their problems and they won't talk to you. It's really hard. Here's a recommendation. When you rather than saying what's wrong, so you notice your kids, they're critical, they're irritable, they have no patience, they throw their backpack, what's wrong? That's the response, right? And I get that. Boys especially have a hard time expressing emotion. Boys, men have as many emotions as girls and women do, but they don't have vocabulary. So we women, if we're frustrated, we're angry, frustrated, mad, upset, ticked off, confused, and just done. Men are angry. And I don't say that lightly, but there's research that would say that, again, men have as many emotions, they just don't have vocabulary. And boys and girls have a hard time identifying what's inside that caused that irritability or that lack of patience or whatever. So what I'm finding, could work really well is for you to say to a child, hey, I've noticed that you were really critical with your sister when you played that new game. Normally you're really patient when you teach a new game to Bethany, and you weren't very patient with her and you made her feel really stupid. I know that's not like you, so what's up? So describe what you see rather than asking what's wrong. Describe what you see. Let them know that you've noticed something. You're impatient, you lied, you were careless, you didn't finish your meal, you didn't want to talk to grandma, you stayed in your room all night, whatever it is that you've noticed that legitimately concerns you. Let them know that. Let them know you're observing and that your love compels you to say what's up. The other thing that you can do, Kathy, is a verbal multiple choice. If you have you live with these kids, so if you have a prediction that it might be that, they forgot they had a quiz and they've really been anxious about it, or, dad forgot to call and he's supposed to call on Wednesday nights, or a mom forgot to call, whatever. If you have a prediction, I like the verbal multiple choice. Well, Frank, is it this that upsets you, or is it this, or maybe it's this? And watch the eyes. Because how many of you know that eyes give it away, right? There's an eyebrow lift, or there's the look up at you or the look away from you when you say the thing that is true. And then file that information away, and maybe go there a little bit deeper, or maybe just file that away for later. Another thing that I want to recommend, if you haven't thought about this, is a lot of preteens, teens, and children tell me they like to talk in the dark. They don't like our eyes. They tell me, I know I'm going to really disappoint my mom when I tell her this, and I don't want to see her face. Makes sense, right?
Yes.
And so put them to bed, or if you've got older kids, be in the hallway when you know that they're kind of settling down for the night, and just stand there and, well, Mom, what are you doing? Well, I'm just loving you, praying for you, just pondering, what's been going on, and just wait. And how many of you have discovered that your kids will say, hey, Mom? Because a lot of us ask questions of our kids when the siblings are there. They don't want to talk about the bad stuff when the sibling is there. Or we talk to them, right when they get home from school and they're processing so much. Or maybe you are home educating and there's just so much going on. So the dark is a comfortable place. And, maybe you've discovered that your kids come into your bedroom and, join you there. And that's can be a safe and secure place. I also want to say that, how we were mentioning, Kathy, the danger of allowing kids to think that they should problem solve, that it's their job to put mom and dad back together. In light of that, I think a great question to ask kids is, what problems would you like to solve? Now, that's a great question for preteens and teens who are trying to figure out what to do with the rest of their lives. Questions like, what do you want to do when you grow up and where you're going to go to college, aren't as effective today. And I address that in my book, Screens and Teens. It's because kids are multifaceted, multi-passionate, multi-able. Questions like, what do you want to do when you grow up, sound really limiting. The question, what problems do you want to help solve, honors them. And one of the reasons for that is that, unfortunately, our children are seeing the world broken on the World Wide Web. Right? Before they're developmentally ready to handle all the mess that they see, and now they have mess in their family. And so they are designed by God to be oriented toward problem solution. I believe that. So to ask, what problems do you want to help solve, if they say something that is not their job, but they're honest with you, oh my goodness, what a privilege for you to say, oh, Sarah, it's not your job. What are some other problems that we could legitimately work on?
Okay, good. You know what I particularly love about that, Dr. Kathy, is the tone in which you stated it. And I think a lot of parents can get in a lot of trouble by their tone. The way that you stated it was so non-threatening. And I think it's so important for us to watch our tone and what we're implying or what we're saying that we're not saying. So thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, thank you. And I think, for us to be optimistic, hopeful, positive, those are to go into our conversations. And I don't say that lightly. Given the trauma. But again, to protect our children from as much as we can and to protect our own hearts from any more, to expect the best. And again, that's our choice. It is a choice to be encouraging and optimistic. So. Yeah,
I love that. And you speak about in the dark, and that is so great. I've not heard that before. So I do speak to parents and tell them to sit on the floor beside the bed, away maybe lay your head on the bed and away from them, so that they feel free to open up. But how excellent to know it's your eyes sometimes. It can be intimidating for your children. And the
Mhm.
dark might be just what we need to do. You say in one of your books, and your books are incredible, and I am just so fortunate to have connected with you and have you here. But you say that a child wants to be known.
Mhm.
And how do they want to be known right now as they're going through this trauma?
Well, they want to be known for more than a child of trauma, that's for sure. Yeah, thanks for asking this question. Identity controls behavior. We are created, God knows our name. We're created intentionally, and we want to be known. That's why we often do what we do. So in the midst of the trauma, let me just share, we want our kids to have a complete identity, to know who they are intellectually, so to still pay attention to their academics and to be positive and optimistic there, to know it, whether you're the parent who's with them a lot or the parent who's not with them a lot, to know if they're working on a dramatic reading for an English class, are they working on a long-term paper for a history class, to be aware of that and to be supportive and to not ask questions that simply judge ability, but are interesting about, I want to learn with you. Sarah, you're learning about this. I'd love to learn with you. So to talk about the intellectual self, to talk about the social self, who are you hanging with? Who has been supportive of you? Who have you felt you could share your life with? And who have you known that it would be unwise for you to share, the entire story? And that public and private knowledge thing is obviously very important as well. And then there's the emotional side, certainly to know their emotions. And when they are joyful, to call it out and say, Frank, so glad to see the joy today. And if Dave is angry, to acknowledge that and say, Dave, you have a lot of reasons to be angry. Like, I get that. And you hug and you love and you play a board game and you distract, but you don't say, well, why are you angry? I mean, that's not a terribly wise question to ask if you know as a parent that there's something legitimate going on in his life. And so there's the emotional side, the social side, the intellectual side. Character qualities, really important. And, Kathy, to make sure that our kids know that character ought to be a 24/7, 365 consistency. Now, things change us. I mean, I'll admit that, well, here's an example. Like I'll be in a good mood and then I'll get in the wrong line at the grocery store. Anybody have that experience? And before you know it, I'm complaining like everybody around me. And I had no intention of going negative. But, the Bible teaches us very clearly that you got to be careful of who you hang with. And so, but our character, ideally we raise up our kids so that they're patient no matter who they're with. They're generous no matter who they're with. They're other-centered no matter who they're with. They're kind. And we believe at Celebrate Kids so much in character that many of my books, including 5 to Thrive, have an appendix at the back of character qualities, because it matters that we know the heart and we know the essence of ourselves. So I think to talk to our kids about, man, I saw you being kind to the neighbor. I saw you being curious. I saw that you were careful. I appreciate that you were grateful. Gratitude and joy, by the way, are the foundation of obedience. Now, I don't have time to get into that, but there's solid research that people who are consistently grateful and consistently joyful, not circumstantially happy and not obligated to say thank you, but we have as a character, we are grateful, joyful people. That is the root of obedience or even righteousness. And that's something that should provoke some thought among you. And so ask yourself, when do you call out gratitude from your kids and when do you call out their joy? Wake them up and say, hey, joyful Jill, or hey, joyful Kathy, and just kind of set the stage. And so I think those are some important things. Certainly they need to know what they're good at, not all the negatives. They need to know what they need to work on. We all need to know our weak areas so that we know what we need to work on. But I think kids in trauma, give them hope. And hope comes from our interests and hope comes from our strengths. So talk about those things.
Yes, and talk to us. We know this, but I want to hear it from you, Dr. Kathy, the importance of listening and not jumping into the parent-teacher mode.
Oh, gosh.
Help us emphasize that for us.
Yeah, come on. To be fully present as a listener, to listen not for your turn to talk, and to listen, not to judge, but to listen motivated by love, to listen, to learn, to have facial expressions and, a posture of intentionality, leaning in, to be fully present with your phone, even in another room, much less on silent. And give kids time. And you know what? If you haven't been fully present, I respect that. I can only imagine some of you are dealing with the number of decisions you're making and calls you have to make and limited awake hours between maybe work and when someone's available. And I mean, you guys know your own situation. I don't need to rehearse it for you, but I respect that being fully present to your children is a legitimate challenge. And yet we would say to you today that they are your children. And this is a limited opportunity for you, talk about time frame, to let them know that you're there for them. And so to be fully present, I sometimes sit, Kathy, like this. I'm a chatty Kathy. I'm logic smart, so I can often solve someone's problem before they know they have one, which is not a good thing. Because I want to help, I tend to ask why and how come, and well, have you tried this? And all of that's legitimate at the right time. But to listen longer to the whole story, to listen longer to their thoughts about what went wrong. And then I sometimes say to children and adults, well, were you just venting, or were you just needing a chance to hear yourself process, or would you like some advice? Sometimes I ask permission, and I'll say to a child, do you want to know what I think? And they'll say, well, not yet. And I'm like, that's okay. Because how many of us are internal processors? I benefit greatly from hearing myself talk about something and then wondering, I wonder what did I really mean by that? And then, what's really cool is the kid will come back an hour later or at bedtime in the dark and say, hey, Mom, I was thinking about that conversation we had. And what about if I try this? And you know what's so cool? If they come up with the same idea that you would have recommended, oh my gosh, now you're raising and training, righteousness, right? And now you can say, to your kids, hey, Kathy, that's a great idea. Way to think it through. And now they feel mature and ready to tackle tomorrow's issue. Mm-hmm. So if you do all the problem solving for them, they won't grow up. Yeah. I probably rambled a little bit there, but I hope that's the essence. I hope that was helpful.
That is very helpful, because we do want to fix it. We want to fix it right now and make it right. And we want to expedite it because we have limited time and we're just going to get to the bottom line. And that doesn't help them grow and mature or process. Yeah. And it's so difficult for us not to give judgment as well. And instead of judging, we could ask good questions. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And your resources speak to that. And any comments further you'd like to say would be awesome.
Something's been on my mind as we've been talking, Kathy, and that is grace, mercy, truth, right? Mm-hmm. Boundaries. I think that as I've worked with parents around the world, the tendency for some is to just anything goes. The kids have been traumatized and, they're heartbroken by what's happened and, they miss their mom, they miss their dad, they miss the house, they miss the whatever. I mean, mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, you guys, the decisions you make really matter, ladies and gentlemen. And, but I want to say to you, you will do great damage to your children if you just anything goes because you think that that's love. Mm-hmm. And I want to say with a lot of respect that that's not love. Love is boundaries. Boundaries are blessings when given in love. And I pray that you would have the strength to say no to the no things and yes to the yes things. And you would even say, Jake, it's because I love you that the answer is no. Because I know the big picture and I know what's coming next. The answer is no. Go sit down. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm not saying that they're going to jump away and go, okay, Mom, mm-hmm. But again, this is where we need to make sure that we're taken care of and that we have support and that we are loved and that we have people that we can vent with and that we nurture ourselves and rest. And wake up early enough to have quiet time, or go for a walk at noon, do what we can do to make sure that we're as healthy as we can be so that we can have truth that rules,
Yeah.
with grace and mercy, with, hey, Jake, I get it, let's have ice cream for dinner. I mean, there's nothing wrong with an occasional dinner of ice cream because you've all had a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you would agree with me, Kathy, that we've got to keep the boundaries. It really is essential to security. Again, who can I trust? Many children tell me that the home they go to with an anything goes, I can use technology whenever I want.
Yeah. So what you're saying, and I love, is to be the consistent parent. And not to be the Disney dad or the Disney mom. That consistent parent is really a security for the children, isn't it?
It is. And could I even say it's security for the parent? Because now the parent knows this is right in our family. These are our values. This is how we manage life. And this is how we don't do it. There's security there for the parent. Now, I'm not forced in front of my angry 16-year-old to make a flippant decision that I regret later that night. Because I know the values in this family, and we're still a family, the way that we're going to raise, or the way that I'm going to raise my kids here, this is what right, and this is what's wrong. So there's security for the parent.
Which leads into the next question and the final question. You have said some profound things. And I will tell you, I watched Kill the Spider 3 times.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I shared it with my children. It is one of your YouTubes that was done 7 years ago, but it's about those basic core needs of the children. And I passed it on to my kids, and my daughter-in-law posted it on Facebook because it is so core for the development and the growth of our children. It's so core. And if we can get those cores right,
yes,
kids are going to make it, right?
Yes. And we can get them right even in trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma doesn't have to define us the rest of our life. It might always be a reason that certain things are challenging, but it doesn't have to be an excuse for being an idiot. It really doesn't have to rule our world. The core needs can be met.
Yes, they can. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be with a lot of, you don't need a lot. You can have the basics. For my kids, when they were little, we didn't have much. We had popsicles in the park. That was what we had. And the memories to this day that they remember.
Exactly. Children appreciate little consistencies. Consistency is a part of security. It is memory making. Now we look back on good days when we're in the middle of a bad day. So really, that's such a popsicles in the park. I love that. We should start a campaign. Go have popsicles in the park. That's brilliant. Love that.
Put away the phones, the technology, and everything else. Go back to popsicles in the park.
Yeah,
for sure. Your books, which we listed before this interview, are available, and we'll have that on our resource page for people to go to. But I'm curious, Kathy, of all the books that you've written, what's your favorite?
Oh, dear.
I know that's like asking what's your favorite child. It's not fair.
Come on, exactly. I actually, I really think Start with the Heart, which is about prioritizing relationships and not behavior, how to compliment and correct, how to help kids understand consequences for their choices. I'm not a mean, bad mom. You caused that by your choice to behave that way. How to be a teacher, coach, referee, and cheerleader. The beliefs that kids have to have in order to survive in the midst of chaos. Start with the Heart, I think, is maybe my favorite because some of what I've taught in it goes way back to when I earned a PhD. And then certainly the newer book, 5 to Thrive, that we've been talking about today, is everything that we do at Celebrate Kids. But all of my books have a chapter on the core needs. That's how important they are. And this book, by the way, was written not for parents. This is the only book I've written at Celebrate Kids that's written for people. And then obviously parents will apply it, husbands and wives will apply it, grandparents apply it, single people apply it. But I wrote it more generally to reach the masses because the core needs are for everyone, as you've said.
And maybe that's why I was so intrigued with it. is because
Uh,
it is not just children, it's
no.
all of us.
Mhm.
All of us have those core needs, and when we can respond to those core needs in a healthy manner, we can grow, we can be complete, we can be what God intended us to be, and that is healed and healthy
Oh,
individuals.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's what allows us to risk. And without risk, we don't grow. And there's tragedy there. All
Yes.
of us, I would pray that all of us recognize that there's more to life than what we're currently living, and that we thrive when we go after it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love your knowledge. I love your
Thank you.
heart toward children, and this has been a phenomenal opportunity to have you. And we could spend hours really on this topic. There are so many scenarios we could bring up, but we do want to just get the essence of it. Your books are going to be on the resource list. I'd highly encourage Five to Thrive. I'm sorry I didn't have it here to hold up. And I have read through that, as well as you can see Dr. Kathy on many Focus on the Family. She's
Mhm.
been frequent flyer there,
Yes.
and accessible. So as we conclude, Dr. Kathy, tell us about Celebrate Kids.
Sure. So I'm based in Fort Worth, Texas. I have a ministry strategy team in Jacksonville, Florida. We we want to help parents raise the children they were given, not the children they wish they had.
Mhm.
We really want people to recognize God's intentionality when creating children and when putting a family together. So we do that by product developments. We have books and resources. We have a great podcast. We have a really good social media presence. And then I'm a public speaker. I get paid to talk, which is really fun. And I tend to do many conferences. Now, obviously, we're in a different situation. Currently, we're praying that conferences would open up. We also do our own conferences. We have a women's conference in St. Louis, March 5th and 6th. You can learn about that at ignitewomen.org. And so in addition to getting hired to speak for churches, schools, and conventions, we do our own ministry events here to disciple parents and families. We'll be doing parent education conferences called Redirected. We're also going to do a multi-generational family conference where grandparents, parents, and kids are welcome. And that'll be in St. Louis in late May. So if people go to celebratekids.com, we're in the process of updating our website. And so keep an eye on that and hang out with us at Facebook or Instagram, and you'll learn all about what we're doing. We exist to serve, just like you, Kathy. We exist to serve you. It's about ministering hope, healing, and the love of God to you, because it's not easy, but it's possible. Amen.
Amen. It is. And I've always said, if mommies would be mommies and daddies would be daddies, what a different world we would have.
Oh, come on. Great statement. Yeah.
Dr. Kathy, thank you so much for your contribution, for your heart, and for being with us today.
Hey, it's been my pleasure, Kathy. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for being so well prepared. What a joy to be with you. I pray that everyone who's listening is going to be blessed by their time with us.
Thank you.